Hello there and welcome to today's vlog. Now here's a question for you. Can you identify the person featuring on my t-shirt? Of course there's a bit of a clue there because you probably be able to work out that underneath his face are the words Doctor Who. So he was one of the Doctor Who actors, but not so well known. He only appeared very briefly in kind of a one-off. His name is Paul McGann and he's one of the doctors. Anyway, that's nothing to do with what I was going to tell you. First of all, or second of all, perhaps I should say, a bit of an update on medical matters. Sue and I went along to our local GP surgery to register. We very rarely have actually used the services of GPs, but it's obviously important to register. So they have this little machine, and it's kind of a big machine actually. You stand on it and you stand up straight, and then you put your arm into this little hole, and so this machine weighs you, it measures your height, and it takes your blood pressure. So a very clever machine. It's quite funny that on this machine, in big letters, it says, "This machine will not speak out your weight." Obviously, some people are quite worried that it might do. But anyway, so we registered, and then I got a phone call a couple of days ago to say that my blood pressure reading had been a little bit high. Would I go in and have it checked again, just to make sure? So along I went this morning, and it was still a little bit high. I did, in conversation with the lady who was looking after me, we agreed that I had what's called, I think it calls me like white coat syndrome. So when you go into something medical, it kind of makes you a bit nervous. I felt a little bit nervous, no reason why I should do. Sometimes I've had my blood pressure taken, it's been a bit high, and then a few minutes later it's gone down to normal again. So she said, well, you can either come back in a week's time and have it done again. Well, I thought there's no point in that, it'll just be the same. Or you can take your own blood pressure measurement twice a day for a week and then bring back the results and we'll have a look at them. So that's what I'm going to do, if we can find our BP monitor. Anyway, that's enough of that. Nothing that I'm worried at all about. Now I want to tell you about a book that I'm reading at the moment, another one. In fact, that one I told you about last time, Bob Goff's book. Now Sue's started reading it, so hopefully she'll benefit as much as I did from it. Now this book is a book called, if you can see that, Love Child, and it's written by a lady called Allegra Houston. I don't know if you've heard of her. But let me just read the opening paragraph of the front flap of the dust jacket. It'll give you a bit of a background. When Allegra Houston was 4 years old, her mother was killed in a car crash. Soon afterwards, she was introduced to an intimidating man wreathed in cigar smoke, the legendary film director John Huston, with the words, "This is your father." So she was born in London, grew up in an early part of her life in Ireland, and then was taken off to the United States. It's quite revealing in the way she describes her early memories, and the way that she was kind of almost bumped from pillar to post with different people in her life. And I read yesterday, I think it was, very revealing and sad in some ways. A couple of verses. She'd been living in this house in Ireland, and then that was going to be sold off, and so she had to move to a different one. She says this: "I was to be housed where convenience dictated. I had felt in the heart of my family like a guest." And that's really sad, isn't it? that even within those who were her family, she felt like a guest, almost an intruder. When she lived in Ireland, she felt an outsider because she was a Brit, and then obviously when she moved to the States, a bit the same. So it's been in a place, but you're feeling not really fully part of that group you're with. And the sad thing is that sometimes that can happen in church life. Sue and I had an interesting conversation this morning. I asked Sue, do you miss, because it's coronavirus, we haven't yet actually attended a physical building here in Doncaster. We watch regularly service on television and other Christian input, but we've not actually been to a physical church. And I said to Sue, do you miss not actually going to a church building or taking part in an actual physical service? And she thought for a while and then said, yes I do. And probably I've come to the conclusion that I too miss that. Now you might be surprised that we're thinking about it before we say that, but we have been blessed greatly by watching online services, etc. So we don't feel we're missing out. We can read the scriptures. I'm still going through writing out Mark's Gospel. Only got to chapter 4, but it's really good doing that. But there is something about actually being with other Christian believers, isn't there? Interesting enough, one of my sisters, Mary, and her husband Keith were with us just for a few hours recently, and they had their grandson Harry. And I don't know how we got to talk about this, but Harry was asking about the word fellowship. It's a word that we often use in church, but actually, come to think about it, you rarely hear about it used in other contexts, do you? What does it actually mean? And you probably know that it comes from the Greek word that was used in the New Testament. The Greek word is koinonia, which has to do with that fellowship or that joining or that connection, that deep sharing. So it's a very deep thing that we share together as God's people. But the sad thing is that sometimes people have been part of a church community for a long time, months or even years, and yet not feel fully part of it, accepted, embraced. And that's really sad, isn't it? Because we as local church, certainly when we get back together again, meeting, we need to really work on making sure everybody feels that they are part, an important part, a vital part, included, embraced, valued, treasured. Because if people don't feel that, then they may all drift away, and we're kind of we're letting people down if we don't allow everybody to feel embraced and welcomed and loved and cared for. So that's a challenge for every local church community when we get back together again. But maybe even more so now, how we, when we're not able to meet together, or perhaps people are starting to do so, but when we've been through this time of social isolation, how are we making sure everybody is still feel loved and cared for and welcomed and embraced? That's the challenge of the church in a broken society, in a society where so many are lonely. How can we as church demonstrate that all embracing, that welcoming, gracious love of God to other people? That's a challenge for us. How can we be the kind of church that the Lord Jesus wants us to do, the one who was an arms open, arms beckoning person? So God bless you. Thank you so much for listening today.